how can you burn a young taller? And with depression, we can deal with the lessons. You can't make a profit out of passion. It is what it is. A rebel from the city of the kings, but prolific in the language of the queens. Watch them sins. And I swear it feel like the last days, but in this new world of the masked face, still trying to get paid. Listen, tell me, how can I stay sane when the only choice for a hustler is corona hunger, and ain't nobody looking out for our welfare? With dirty tap water killing us in Louverbe, they hide racism and they quick to attack crime, but they all on Twitter like they care about black lives. It's mad lies. Hey, don't forget about your own. You want justice for Floyd, we know justice for Paul. It's the music for the youth to be strong and find a way. I spell more, you're still searching for them.
One 100.3 Sky's Metro FM. You're tuned into the SKKRR show. Welcome, guys. It's a Friday once again, and I'm back reporting live from Vienna in Austria. It's your girl, Umis V, and I'm going to be a radio bay for the next 30 minutes. With me, I have a guest. We're going to be talking about prenuptial agreements, marriage, and divorce. So I have Mr. Dixon Abraham from Tanaka Law Firm. And let me just give him some time to introduce himself. Dixon, how are you?
Good evening, Ms. V. Pleasure to be on the show. Good evening, Bulawayo. Good evening, Zimbabwe. My name is Dixon Abraham, and I'm a legal practitioner in the beautiful city of Kings. And I'm pleased to be on the show.
Hey, you're welcome. Wholeheartedly. And for those of you who are on Facebook, please head on to the Skies Metro FM Facebook page and check us out. Gitilapa, it's light, camera, and action, so you can also see us. So now let's just get straight to it. Love is a beautiful thing, yeah, but sometimes you shouldn't forget it's a business transaction, you know. We all are in it, and we gotta be like watching out for our own interests. So in the process of watching out for our own interests, when it comes to umchado and everything, there's stuff like prenups. So Mr. Abraham, can you maybe tell us what is a prenup?
Okay. A prenup is the shortened term for prenuptial agreement. Well, we call it in our jurisprudence, or we call it in our law, we call it an antenuptial agreement, meaning it's an agreement that is signed before the two parties get married. Right? Mm-hmm. It's a contract, meaning that it's two people sit down, they agree that these are going to be the terms of our assets, meaning what we go into the marriage with, right? Mm-hmm. The purpose of this is to make sure that whatever we bring into the marriage is going to be the same things that we take out of the marriage. But it's special in a certain way. I'll get to that later. But it's essentially an agreement that is signed by two people to make sure that what they have at the outset is essentially what they get out when they leave the marriage.
Leave the marriage. And then so with prenups, they're really a common thing in Zimbabwe because from an Austrian perspective, or maybe from diaspora in general, prenups are pretty much a common thing, not only from celebrities, but from people in general. They sign these papers to say like, okay, if we're splitting, this is what you're getting, this is what I'm getting. How common are prenups in Zim?
Well, Prenups are not very common, Ms. V. The basis for signing a prenup is that you have a lot of assets, you have a lot of money, and you have a lot of wealth, and you're going into this engagement, and you're saying, I want to leave with what I came with. But prenups are not very common in Zimbabwe because, for obvious reasons, we are not the most financially endowed country. Right? We have no middle class really, but for the elite, it's still something that they still do, and they conclude them often. Like, as I will explain later, the requirements for a prenuptial agreement. So for all the people out there who want to really sign one, you're gonna learn how to do so today. But in the Western countries, it's very common. In countries like America, where you learn about it and you see it in movies and all the stuff. The Elon Musks of the world, the Jeff Bezoses of the world, they're signing prenuptial contracts.
I see.
Yeah.
But then couldn't we say for those people who are married in community of property, is that not like a kind of prenup, so to say? Because at the end of the day, you are splitting assets.
Okay. Excellent question. Right. The distinction between being married, it's actually being married out of community of property. Being married out of community of property means that what I brought into the marriage, I also take out. But it becomes different with the prenuptial agreement because, and this is the kicker here, when you have revenue generating assets or assets that give you money, you have an estate, a collection of properties and assets that you have, right? So if you generate profits from those assets, and listen very closely, if you generate profits from those assets, those profits remain yours in that marriage. That's what a prenuptial agreement does. If the husband is succeeding with his thriving business inside that marriage, those profits remain his. But if the wife is struggling with her business, those losses remain hers. That's what that's the unique part of a prenuptial agreement. If you are thriving, you're thriving alone. If you're failing, you're failing alone. That's what a prenuptial agreement is. Essentially becomes a unique kind of setup.
A unique kind of setup. Okay, so for those who are married in community of property, how is it? Let's say I'm married in community of property. I had my own things before I got into this marriage. So when me and my husband split, should we also start sharing what I made before him, or we're sharing what we made together when we were married? What's the setup there?
Well, with regards to people viewers at home might not know that the setup in Zimbabwe is that when you get married in a civil marriage, it's in community out of property, like what you described. When you enter into a marriage with something, it remains yours after after you split. However, now whatever you make whilst in that setup, whilst in that marriage, it is taken to be what we call matrimonial property. You have to split it. So if I went into the setup broke and I made all my money during the marriage, and if my partner contributed to that it means that is fair game. It's up for sharing. You can get a piece of that because you helped me amass it in that marriage. So
even if it wasn't financially,
that's how it goes.
Even if it wasn't financial.
Yes, even if it wasn't financial.
Even if it wasn't.
Sure.
Yeah,
because no man is an island. Yeah.
No man is an island. For those of you who have questions concerning divorce, concerning marriage, and concerning prenups, or anything about civil marriage and sharing of property after divorce, please make sure to send in your voice notes or your messages on the number 0774 460 100, or even comment to Facebook. There I can also read your messages and for the night, what you can do and how you can do it. And so back to the issue of marriage. How many marriages, what kind of marriages are there in Zimbabwe? For instance, here in Austria, there's one type of marriage, like the civil marriage. But then there are some marriages of convenience that not really are legally known, but there are people who get married for the colorful cards. If you're in America, it's a green card. In Austria, it's a red, white, red card, or whatever color there is for diasporans.
Yeah,
These people
that's
get
true.
married for the sake of paper, that their lives get easier, they can get jobs and everything and everything. And most of these marriages are paid for. You have an agreement with the person. In Zimbabwe, of
Yes.
course, well, I can't really say people are they who are paying for marriages. I can't speak for them. But what kind of marriages are they in Zimbabwe?
Okay, Miss V, the setup in Zimbabwe is like this. There are three kinds of marriages. We have first and foremost, we have the civil marriage. That is what people might know as the Chapter 511 or the former Chapter 37. Yes, that's the white wedding. That's exactly that our parents had. Yes, that's the one. That's the one where you go to court, justice of the peace. It's you get a marriage certificate and the like. I'm sure everyone at home is aware of what a civil marriage is. And for anyone who doesn't, you just need to just go home and look at the certificate. If it says Chapter 511 on it, that's the one. You basically enter into a marriage. You are excluded from having any other kind of civil marriage if you are already in a civil marriage. You are basically one man, one wife. Right. Then we have a customary law marriage. That's the Chapter 513. That's the one of which I speak is the one where you have registered it and you get a certificate as well. That's a Chapter 513. That's a registered customary law marriage in which a man, well, I would not advise this, but well, it's because of my beliefs, but a man can marry as many customary wives as he so chooses. That's what it allows.
As temp.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Then you have the unregistered customary law union, as you earlier alluded to, umahlalisana, the kind of marriage in which you go and pay dowry or lobola or rora, and then you simply have at it. Whether or not the rora is paid or not, no one knows because it's never registered. But that's essentially it. But the dissolution of each one of these, like the breaking up or the divorcing in each one of these kinds of marriages, is different. In a civil marriage, you need to go through the High Court to dissolve your marriage, and give substantive grounds why you are dissolving. In unregistered customary marriage, well, it's simply you go my way, you go your way, I go mine. But all those things have got legal consequences and implication. As it were.
I see.
Yes.
And then
those are the three types.
those are the three marriages. So what are the highs and lows of marriage and community of property, especially where death is concerned and the deceased spouse had maybe no will, but he had children from another marriage? Do the kids inherit anything, or everything that belonged to the married couple belongs to the surviving spouse now?
Okay, we've shot right ahead to the death of one of the parents. Yes. Okay. Right. When you have a situation in which you have children, whether inside your marriage union or outside, your children will inherit. Might I say, your children will inherit. Now the question now remains: did you leave a will before your demise, or did you not leave a will? That's the first starting point, right? Yeah. When you die without leaving a will, we call that intestate. You perished intestate without having a will to appoint who you want to inherit certain things. So if it is your child and that child can prove that they are your child and not necessarily of your wife at the time of your death, it means that they've got some claim to your estate.
They do.
As long as you don't leave that will, yes. because it's now out of your hands. You did not conclude a will to point us in the direction, because you don't have time, or you don't have the ability to tell us what you wanted to have done before you die.
Before you die. Okay, then let's move to the topic of marriage now. So you found your person, you've agreed, we're gonna marry chapter 37 or whichever chapter you've decided on. What, in your own opinion, what are the biggest mistakes that you see people making when it comes to getting married? For one, I see people spending so much money on a wedding just for one day to please abantu, and they get into so much credit. Some people even take loans for credit, and then at the end of the day, they are now starting a marriage on a minus balance, which tends to create maybe problems in the future. I don't know if you've ever seen or experienced or seen or know of people. It was a beautiful wedding, everything, but 2 years down the line, sebehlukene. In your point of view, what are the biggest mistakes that people make?
Well, I'm 5 years into practice. I've been doing this since 2017, and have been I've been registered as for 5 years, but I've been doing this for close to 10. I have handled a lot of divorces, and I have seen a lot of weird reasons for getting a divorce. But the top 5 goes like this. Number 1 is cheating. Number 2 is cheating. Number 3 is cheating. Number 4 is cheating. Number 5 is cheating. Number 6 might be issues involving money, but it's mostly cheating.
It's mostly cheating.
This is the sweeping reason that I've seen for most divorces. Yes.
Wow. Cheating.
So it is the reason. The issue of the wedding or spending too much. In Zimbabwe, we have a dispensation in which we live from one paycheck to the next.
Yeah.
People are living together. They love each other, but they are living under one roof, 2 roofs.
Yeah.
They love each other. They are living their life together. That money plays a part, but not that big a part. It's when that person who's living in that one roof then decides to go out from that one roof and go and encounter someone else at a separate place. That is when the issue of divorce now crops up. But I would divert from my own personal opinions and maybe give you some legal context. Maybe that will help.
Maybe that will help.
The issue regarding that would help. Right, the issue regarding reasons for divorce. It's pronounced by a certain act in our law. We call it the Matrimonial Causes Act, and Section 4 of this act gives us 2 grounds for requesting a divorce. But we now have this. If I can maybe just give you some background or some context into what
keep it short.
Divorce
keep
law
it short.
Or what it said about reasons for divorce. Before 1986, there was a situation. Well, I won't bore you with the details, but I'm saying before 1986, there had to be a guilty person when it came to who was innocent. Well, now 2 innocent people can divorce. They can simply just say, "Hey, this is not working for us," and they have to satisfy these certain reasons.
Yeah.
Section 4 says that there has to be an irretrievable breakdown of marriage. That marriage must have irreconcilable differences. We can no longer find sense in this. And the second is incurable mental illness or continuous unconsciousness of one of the parties of a marriage. I'm sure you've seen soapies in which someone is hit by a car and they're in a coma for 10 years.
Yeah.
Then that spouse decides, hey, since he's no longer gone, I'm going to marry. Then only to wake up on one episode. That's what they're referring to here.
That's what they're referring to. Okay, then when it comes to the issue of divorce, right?
Yeah.
Marriage is not. It's got its own challenges. It's not always roses and butterflies and stuff. But we find our society, our culture, more to say, like, it encourages women to stay, to say, like, marriage is difficult. Everyone goes through these difficulties. Stay there, even if sometimes the marriages are toxic. And sometimes religion also plays a part, where like they encourage couples to stay together, even if it's not working. And then at the end of the day, people start having mental problems, like, you know, depression and everything, because of a marriage that's not working. Do you think like it also plays a part in like the divorce rates, like in Zimbabwe? How are they? Is it like high divorce rates, low divorce rates? Because in Austria, like, it's 46%, almost half of the marriages in Austria end in divorce. So could you say, like, religion and the cultural expectancies, they contribute maybe to the low percentage rate or high percentage rate of divorces in Zimbabwe?
Well, I'll say this. My senior partner, Mr. Tanaka Mkanyi, always says, when marriage is like a burning house, there are some who are rushing out of it, and there are some who are rushing in.
Yeah.
Maybe that can just answer your question. A lot of people are divorcing in civil marriage. In civil marriages, a lot of people are divorcing. We see it on the court rolls each week. A lot of people are divorcing. I cannot maybe speak to the numbers, but a lot of people are divorcing.
Yeah, a lot of people are divorcing.
Yeah.
And then for those married in the second marriage, where they can have many types of wives and estrangini and all that, when one wife decides, you know what, look, I don't want to be married.
Yes.
I don't want to do this whole thing anymore. Is she entitled? What is she actually entitled to? How do they share the assets then if they're married in community of property? Like, what's the setup there for his temp?
Well, the setup for his temp in that setup, well, it's regrettable to state that you don't, on the part of the women, it's not really. It really does not empower them, in my opinion. I'm not speaking to any legal fact or any. In my opinion, I feel it's not empowering towards them, because they can be one of many. But I'm not knocking it. I'm not discouraging anyone. But in my opinion, it does not give you any empowerment, because you are one of many. You yourself, the lady, cannot go and find another man or do the same that the man is doing. Understand? Because once you do that, you can be sued for adultery damage. Imagine that. He has got 7 wives, but if you were to ever go out and you would be sued for adultery damage.
For adultery. And then when it comes to alimony now, does Zimbabwe have an alimony law? Like, when people divorce, how is it set up?
Well, you have,
what is alimony? Maybe marriage, you can just get into detail. What is alimony, like, for those who don't know?
Well, alimony it's an American term that's known in our law as spousal support. In a spousal support, once you separate from someone in a civil marriage, you cannot just leave them just like that. If they are not able, or they are the level of comfort which they became so accustomed to,
used to,
has been taken from them, you are supposed to support them, or restore them to that same level of comfort. So
for those people who are out there who are scared to divorce because they're scared they're going to lose the privileges of being divorced, there's something called alimony, so you don't have to be scared anymore.
Maybe Miss Vijay, if I can maybe just finish off on something, on a thought that I was just thinking. You asked me with respect to women and the stigma that is on them to divorce. There is a code of silence regarding certain things about divorce. Divorce is regarded as it's not an option. I agree in terms of my faith, because I am a child of God and I do not believe in divorce. However, there are certain conditions in which a person can only take so much. I'll just give an example of Osinachi Nwachungu, the Nigerian singer who was murdered by her husband because she had been beaten for so long, and she kept quiet about that. These are some of the conditions that we would term deal breakers. It's not, divorce is not a pretty sight, but in the right circumstances, it can be a lifeboat.
Yeah. It's also not a good thing that people stay with bahlalele ring ilomduli and for the sake of children, because I feel like that's mostly the thing that we see happening. A lot of people are in abusive marriages and they're not happy and clearly being traumatized. But the fact that Christianity or whatever religion they follow and society bazotini syndrome, that you're gonna divorce him and neighbors are gonna talk. You don't want that kind of smoke. So you find many people sticking to marriages that really ain't working because of that, which is always a disadvantage to them. Because at the end of the day, some of them end up dying. And so when you split, I'm divorcing my husband now, and we have 3 children. What happens to the kids? Who gets them?
Well, it all depends with, 9 out of 10 times. I've never dealt with a divorce matter in which the husband has retained the children. The mothers will most likely take custody of the children or have custody of the children, or they can have shared custody. It is all possible, but there has to be a custodial parent.
And they maintain it?
In most cases, yeah, exactly. Whoever has custody of a child, right, the other party needs to now offer maintenance, because the person who's looking after the child is already giving their share of the maintenance to the children whilst looking after them.
Yeah.
So the party who is removed from the children now has to contribute because he's not where the children are. That's when maintenance now comes into effect.
That's when maintenance comes in. And then so for situations where ushadile, right, you're married, and then your husband just kicks you out of the house. I'm bringing in a new wife or phone, and you're married, he's not taking the proper legal route. What can you advise such women or such couples?
Well, there was a very public example of what you have just described. I will not mention who the parties were, but the wife went to the High Court. The High Court agreed with her that she was evicted in a not so proper manner, and there was an appeal to that High Court ruling. But I will just basically answer to what you have said. If you are married and you are removed from that setup, always think of marriage as a contract. Always think of it that way. If you enter into a business contract with someone and that person simply removes you unceremoniously from that enjoyment of what you are having, what would you do with the person who you are sharing premises with for the purposes of selling? What would you do with that person if they chucked you out? You would actually seek legal recourse, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely.
So
my lawyer.
If you look, yeah, exactly. If you see it from that perspective, you then understand. No, I've got rights because I'm in a contract with this person. But there is one thing that I forgot to touch on regarding unregistered customary law unions. We call them universal tacit partnerships. None of the registration in terms of the law applies to this type of partnership. So when people split, it's not so much that we acknowledge that they were formally married, but we are saying that one party cannot take more at the expense of another party. Exactly.
Okay. And so, unfortunately, our show is slowly closing in. One more time. But in closing remarks, I would like to encourage people, Uguti, Omendo, it's not easy. It's got its own difficulties. Bekezela makubekezeleka, and ungabona la sokukhulela, it's okay to walk out. Rather save your sanity, your life in most cases, and ungahlaleli ukuthi kuthiwa nihlalela abantwana or ukuthi kuthiwa nihlaleli iringi lomduli ka-men's parad, because sometimes it ends in tragedy. And for those of you who still have questions for Ipotaletu, please feel free to send in your WhatsApp messages as well, or go to the Facebook page and comment there, and our lawyer is going to reply you from there. Valaleli, thank you so much. Dixon Abraham, thank you so much for tuning in with me.
It was a pleasure being here. It was really a pleasure. Really pleasure being here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for being my guest. Well, Valaleli, we'll hear from each other again, same time, same place next week. Yimo Misfi tuning out. Ngithi libele weekend enhle. Bye.